And welcome, everybody, to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. I am your host for this evening, Robert Pepino, filling in for, of course, your wonderful host, which I love, which is Bad Baby. Oh, we were just having a conversation off air, and, man, she just makes me laugh so hard sometimes. I swear, she's a pip, and I know that for all of you listening to her for, like, ever, know exactly what I'm talking about. She is a hoot. And I'll tell you what, she's getting better, gang. And hopefully by mid-August, she will be back as your regular host for the show, Fight for Our Freedom Radio. Now, this evening, we do have Robert Evans, Planet X researcher. You guys have heard him here on the show before, I know. I've listened to Robert. I've talked to Robert. The guy's an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to Planet X, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with him tonight. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our bumper song. Great song, by the way. You know what? It's all about me again.
I'm making the call now.
Okay, great. So we're going to get Robert Evans on here in a second. She's making the phone call. Bad Baby, you know, and for all the stuff she's gone through, it's been tough on her. Look at her. She's a trooper, man. You guys, she's a trooper. She's out there. She's like, hey, I'm gonna be part of this no matter what. And it's a wonderful thing. So, you know what, while we wait for her to get Robert on, let me just throw a couple of things at you here. You guys all remember, right? And it's been, you know, steadily going on throughout the years, but now the booms, right, the loud explosions are back, the sounds, the strange noises, it's all coming back. And it seems like it happens, and I don't want to put a timetable on it, but it seems periodic that it happens, you know, throughout the years. The thing is, though, that all these strange noises, booms, explosions, sounds that people have been hearing have been on the increase throughout the years. I remember all through, you know, starting back like 2011, 2012, and beyond, actually 2010, you know, people were hearing strange booms and explosions, and had no explanation, yet there were no, it wasn't recorded as an earthquake, put it that way. So here we go. Now we have more of this on the rise once again, but now this is like coming out of Sweden, right? So, and this was actually published on the 20th, so 8 days ago. What does that sound? At 3:50, the first sound, not the car alarm, haha, with a little smile, and at 5:15, the sound is heard more clearly. And, of course, there's a video of this, of what's going on, and I can actually put it in the chat if you guys want to watch. It says, my daughter, Frida, that's definitely a Swedish name, has recorded the movie, which is just the video, right? My voice is also heard in the background. She woke me up. I had never heard of anything like this before. And this is what most people say, you know. They never heard of anything like this before. It was a shaking, it was a boom, it was a shudder. My windows rattled, the ground, you know, shook underneath my house, but yet there was no earthquake reported. And it said the birds silence under the sound of, silence under the sound, and a car alarm goes off on. Oh, it's so strange the way they they actually wrote this out, and it says, and you feel clear vibration on the sound wave. There it is, clear vibration on the sound wave. So, is it an interior event that's taking place within the Earth's mantle of the crust, and then expelling that sound wave or vibration out into the outer atmosphere? You know, our lower atmosphere, creating the shockwave boom within a localized area. You know, again, don't know, but that, you know, this has been heard over and over again. It's pretty bizarre. I think, Bad Baby, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, was that you coming back on, or is that Robert? Okay, I guess we're still waiting. So, Robert, is that you? All right, so I guess we're still waiting. So I'll continue on forward here. So the wildfires, of course, have gone just out of control. New wildfires continue to burn out in France and Portugal. And I also have another thing I wanted to bring up, which I just read today, by the way, off another website. Let me bring this up really quick. Oh, yeah, unusual. Here it is. There it is. 5 provinces on emergency alert for 269 forest fires in Indonesia, and their numbers are increasing daily. Now, what does that tell you guys? We've seen unprecedented wildfires. Remember last year when the whole town in Canada burned down? I don't remember the name of the town off the top of my head, but a whole town burned down. Yeah. Now, I heard the idea that somebody started that fire. You know what? That could be a factor in it, but wildfires are burning out of control all over the world. It's not just Canada. It's not just the United States. This is worldwide. Heavy droughts, massive downpour, these microbursts happening all over the world. Massive flooding. We've all read about it, at least I have, and I know for all you guys listening to this broadcast, I'm sure you're very well aware of the massive inundation of water taking place all over the place. And this, you know what? This is part of the process of the change that we're going through. Now, is it related to Planet X? I happen to believe it is. Okay? And I think these experiences are going to become stronger, more volatile, and hit us with more veracity as time goes on. Then again, hey, your guess is as good as mine. That's just my belief. You can take it with a grain of salt or not, whatever. It's, in my opinion, it is happening all over the world. I mean, here, listen to this. 110 inches of rain in just 4 days hits Mount Abu in Rajasthan, India. Okay, when have you heard of this? When in anybody's lifetime has anybody heard of 110 inches rain falling, I don't know. Somebody's trying to call me, folks. I'm sorry. I just momentarily interrupted. It's always these stupid phone calls, these what are they called? Solicitors, I guess. It's just ridiculous. But anyway.
He's calling in right now, honey.
Okay. All right. I hope he's not trying to call me because my phone keeps ringing. Is that?
No, he's calling this number. He was sleeping. I woke him up.
Okay. Well, I know he's going through a hard time right now.
Okay, here he is. Hold on.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to this article in a little while if Robert wants to.
Okay, go for it.
Hey, Robert, welcome to the program, man. How are you feeling, brother?
Oh, I'm doing okay. My wife forgot to wake me up this morning. Sorry.
That's totally okay. I know that, Bad Baby told me that you're going in for a surgery Monday for your heart, and that, that's a big deal. And that's a big deal, yeah. And you do need your rest. So, at any time throughout this conversation that you and I have this evening, you feel you need to take a break, let me know, and I'll just jump in and, I'll hack through my way of your incredible information, my friend.
No problem at all. Sorry.
No, there's nothing to be sorry about. I'm just glad that, you're going, I know you're going to go through this operation. I know everything's going to be fine. You know what? Hey, everybody out there listening right now, send Robert a prayer of love and a quick recovery because, you know what? It'd be tough. It'd be really tough. I'm just saying it's from the bottom of my heart. It'd be really tough if we lost a guy like you because you're an incredible researcher with incredible information, and not to mention all the photographic evidence that you have presented to us throughout the years, my brother.
Right. Okay, so how's it going today on the show?
It's going good. We were just waiting for you. I was just talking about all the earth changes that are happening, and they're increasing exponentially, and we're watching this.
And that's because we're seeing things that no human has seen for over 3,000 years. The last time this thing was here was during the exodus of the Israelis, the Hebrews from Egypt.
Right.
It's finally been dated. No ifs, ands, or buts. Expedition Unknown went to Santorini recently, and Josh Gates, with a scientist from around the area, they actually found some samples on the bottom of the ancient Thera volcano, now called Santorini, and they dated it perfectly to 1615, 1613 BC.
Right.
Now another team also went to Santorini, and they found an olive tree right at the base of all the volcanic ash, and they dated that to 1613 BC. Now Ippawar, an Egyptian scribe, he detailed the entire account. So now there have been two accounts of the Exodus. One's from the Holy Bible, and Ippawar's account, which is fully detailed. And he said the destroyer. Now that's one of the ancient names for Nibiru. The destroyer was the name that the Egyptians gave it back then.
Right.
Said that volcanic ash was falling all over Egypt during the Exodus, and actually named the entire route.
Well, Robert, before you go any further, let me ask you this: how localized was that event with Santorini? I mean, because the population was very small at that time on Earth. How localized was it, and how many people did it affect because of the low population of people on the planet?
Well, when Santorini erupted, when Thera, the ancient Greek island of Thera, when Thera erupted, it erupted for about 8 or 9 days. Then it just suddenly blew itself apart. Now, the eruption sent a tidal wave right over Crete with the Minoans there.
Right.
And the wave went right on towards Egypt, and it flooded almost all of Egypt during that time. Another ancient account called the Stella, the Tempest Stella of Ockmos, goes into great detail of what happened during Egypt during that time. And Egypt was completely flooded, and the water destroyed a lot of things. And Ockmos was the Egyptian pharaoh who started the 18th Egyptian dynasty. He was the first one. He was the first one to reunite Upper and Lower Egypt, because the Hyksos, Hyksos, they entered Egypt during the 12th Egyptian dynasty, and they stayed there until the end of the 17th Egyptian dynasty.
You bring up...
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. I was just going to say that, I think that's what Robert Schoch's discovery and information was all about, because he said that, the pyramids and, of course, oh, Lord, I'm losing the track of my thought here.
Mm-hmm.
The Sphinx, that's what I was trying to say,
right.
Is that they saw Robert Schoch was one of the first to say, no, look, hey, guys, this was water erosion that took place exactly at the same time frame that you were talking about. Of course, all the geologists and archaeologists said, what, you're out of your mind. It's not right. But that's coming to be proven true now, isn't it?
Well, I'm not too sure on that. possibly, and that might have been from from this huge tidal wave, but I think he was thinking a little bit further back, over 10,000 years ago. Possibly, it might fit in around that somewhere. Now, the Tempest Stela of Akmos goes into really good detail about heavy water damage. It also ends that the pyramids had collapsed. Now, he didn't mention as to what pyramids he was mentioning during the stela when that happened. Now, that happened right between 1615, 1613 to 1558. So it's right there in almost 100-year time frame. Because Akmos supposedly became pharaoh about 1550 BC, starting the 18th Egyptian dynasty. Now, the Hyksos were chased out of Egypt, and they were chased up towards what is now Jerusalem. Now, the Hyksos, they were called the kings of the desert, something like that. They were a Canaanite race. Now, everyone nowadays knows the Canaanites as being the Israelis. Okay?
Right. And that's what I was leading to exactly. That was my thought process as well.
Now, this one, I can't pronounce his name correctly. He did a show years ago called Exodus Decoded. Okay? Now, he was the first one to bring up the part about the Hyksos. Now, Akmos, roughly in Hebrew, means brother of Moses. Okay?
Yep.
So there's a distinct, very distinct linking of the Jews, the Catholics, with this in ancient history.
Right.
Okay?
I'm following you. I'm all ears there.
The ancient people, they knew about this then. And as we became closer and closer, we started finding out about this through archaeology and stuff. Now, President Eisenhower gets into this in 1945.
Now, let me ask you, before you go any further, who presents this information to Eisenhower? Who lays it out on the table and say, hey, look, there's a situation here, and you need to know about this?
Yeah, a lot of people started leaking this after his meeting in 1954. Too many people started leaking this. Okay? So President Eisenhower supposedly had a bad tooth or something, and he was gone for about 2 days. And it turned out that he went over to he went to the ancient Army airfield called Muroc, emergency airfield. And now it's called Edwards Air Force Base. Now, he had a hand-picked team of Western scientists there with him. The other problem was he asked personally the Bishop of Los Angeles, Francis McIntyre, to be his spiritual advisor. So they met supposedly with 3 extraterrestrial races there in 1954. And it's always been described as the Greys, a reptilian-looking race, and an interdimensional race called the Etherians. Now, during this 2-day meeting, the Etherians allowed them to check out all their flying saucers, their flying craft. Now, there was one guy there with Randolph Hearst. Randolph Hearst was there. his name was Gerald Light.
Right.
And he wrote a letter to his friend after the meeting. And in this letter, he said that they're going to be talking about this real soon, that Eisenhower was going to get past all the problems that Truman had set up with Majestic 12. And he was going to probably go public with all this. Now, this letter from Gerald Light to his friend, he goes into great detail about what they're seeing. He said all of the hand-picked scientists, their jaws went right to the floor when they saw this huge block of mass dematerialize right in front of their eyes. Not once, but twice. And he used the term dematerialization process. Now, and all of your listeners, that you can check this out. You can go to my webpage, starshipsaroundthesun.com, and it's right there on my webpage, right in the center of it. You can read the entire thing. You see, when the meeting ended, everyone was sworn to secrecy, Gerald Light including, and he went on to write this letter afterwards anyway. Now, Bishop McIntyre,
right,
of Los Angeles, he refused because they wanted him to swear to never even mention God, to God what he saw, and he refused. On his way across the United States, heading back to Rome, the bishop stopped for fuel, and two of the men in black supposedly forced their way onto his aircraft.
right.
They ordered him to completely
Cease and desist. Yeah.
Exactly. They wanted him to swear to God that he wouldn't even tell God, and he had his security forced the two men off, and he went straight to Pope Pius XII,
right,
over in Rome. Now, Pope Pius was told everything, and he was angry because the bishop also told them there were two races living here on earth which no one knew about, and you could walk down the street of any town and you'd walk right past them. You wouldn't even know what they were. So Pope Pius XII put an archbishop over the bishop and started up secret meetings between the Vatican and the United States. 1955, President Eisenhower went to Holloman Air Force Base early in 1955. It wasn't called Air Force One then. His plane landed and stopped at the end of the runway, and he ordered everything to be shut down: communications, radars, everything.
And that's supposedly when he went for the
Doppler radar systems.
Right, and that's supposedly when he went for his, fake, toothache kind of.
That was 1954.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to get the time frame in my mind here.
Sure. Now, the early Doppler radar systems, which he ordered specifically to be shut down, had also shot down 3 alien craft over and around Roswell.
Now you're talking about 47, right? So it wasn't one specific incident.
Yes.
That was 3 incidences, which I know of 2, but I don't know the third you're speaking of.
Right. I don't have all of it mapped out exactly where. One craft went down, and they found bodies.
Right.
One alien was playing dead. And when he thought he saw a chance to get and run, he ran for it, and the guard shot him before they could be stopped. Another alien was wounded, and that's the one that went in. The Army got that one. Now, the crafts, they were divided up between the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy.
Right.
The Army one, they used their heads, and they actually reverse engineered everything they found in that one. And Colonel Philip Corso, he later wrote a book called The Day After Roswell.
Oh, yeah, very familiar with it, Robert.
Yes. And he went into great detail about how they found these things over the aliens' eyes, and that went out and was reverse engineered into infrared technology. And they found a bunch of other stuff in the ship. Now, he also described that inside the ship, there were no food facilities or storage, and there were no controls or anything.
Right.
How they would fly these things. But they did find this big gold thing which appeared to be over their head. And when they looked into that, they were using what we call the primal brain, which is the small brain underneath our big brain.
Or we look at it as our reptilian brain, right?
Well, yes, yeah. We call it the primal brain. It's a little tiny little nub right there underneath our main brain. And that was using this big goldish-looking circle that went on top of their heads. Now, that went on into movies called Firefox.
Yeah, I remember that movie really well.
Ago, where
with Clint Eastwood. I remember that movie. I watched it a couple of times.
Exactly. Where Clint Eastwood could control the plane if he thought in Russian. The Russians have shot down many of their ships. We've shot down several. One went, I think, over Germany in 1976. The Canadians have also shot down one or two. That's one of the reasons why every time they come here, well, let me back up a second here.
Yeah.
In 1954, near the end of the meeting, the aliens offered their help, but they wanted our nuclear weapons in return. They would give us small amounts of advanced technology.
Okay.
We had to give up.
I got to stop you right there. Why would they want our nuclear weapons when they had such advanced technology, I guess, my question.
They didn't want us to destroy ourselves.
So they wanted us to give up our nuclear weapons.
Exactly.
So okay, I got you. Okay, go ahead.
So Eisenhower didn't think that was cool, and he said no. He told them to go to hell. He thought that they were actually going to invade us. So that was one reason why we started building lots of nuclear weapons. It wasn't really to fight against Russia or China. It was more to keep them as a standoff. At least that's what I've heard from several people. There's other theories. Now,
well, there's the other. I was just going to say, Robert, there's the other theory about when, we down these crafts, okay? And it's a little hazy to me, and I'm not sure how to, put all the pieces of the puzzle together. But when we down these crafts, right, supposedly, and this the other side of the argument, that when there's, and I don't remember this nurse's name, who was at Roswell at the time, who was able to speak with this EB, is the name that they used, okay, extra biological entity,
right.
That was basically just a meat puppet, right, with a consciousness inhabiting this EBE, saying, look, you guys are blowing up these nuclear weapons, and you're throwing at least in our local vicinity, I guess I don't know how local or what they meant by local, that there's a destruction or disruptive wave that you guys are creating that you have no idea what you're doing, and you know what, you're going to doom your Earth. But also the other side of that.
No.
Yeah, right. But I was just getting to the point, and then you can can answer this. Is that they also told us, hey, look, we really came here in peace to tell you that the idea here is that you're going to be facing some very serious circumstances coming in the near future, which has nothing to do with the nuclear weapons, by the way. But this binary system that's coming in that, by the way, causes destruction on the planet every so often. I'm not going to put dates on it because, again,
right.
We just don't have that definitive timeline. But
sure.
they came to lay this down on us, but then there's the other part of that equation, and this is what I find really interesting, Robert.
Exactly.
Is that well, just let me finish this, and then you can answer it. Is that
sure.
Okay? Eisenhower made a deal with these guys that hey, they can take so many of our people, do experiments, do what they need to do to keep their biological race going, because I guess they're at some sort of extinction level event in their in their community, and need our biological DNA to create hybrids, okay, to keep their race going. So what do you say to that, my friend?
Well, there's a possibility of that. There's a lot of other things involved in this that Eisenhower started. He actually did sign several treaties with this first group of 3 ET races. But when Eisenhower turned them down and he said that if they came back, we would shoot them from the skies, that kind of falls into, that's why every time the ETs come here, they seem to fly over a nuclear base or a nuclear power plant, and they shut everything down.
Yeah, it always seems that way.
Now, the ET races, they offered their help and support for an upcoming natural, huge disaster. And Eisenhower didn't understand what was happening. They said a brown dwarf star with its rogue planet would cause immense damage to the Earth and the people. Eisenhower still didn't understand them very well, but they did offer their help and support, and he turned them down.
And it was all telepathic, that information, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because these folks, these little guys, 3 foot, 4 foot tall, these biological automatons, they don't really speak, but the consciousness that inhabits those biological beings communicate strictly telepathically, right? So I'm assuming that's how they were communicating.
Now, the accounts I've heard of, they just said that's what they said. They didn't say anything else. I've heard other accounts that, yes, it was telepathic. Yes, they did talk to the humans. So I don't really know which way it was.
Okay.
Now, the account in 1955, when Eisenhower went to Holloman Air Force Base, his plane landed. He ordered everything shut down. Within minutes, 2 flying saucers, about 40 to 50 feet in diameter, arrived above what we would now call Air Force One.
Right.
One of them stayed orbiting. The other one landed right in front of the aircraft, and Eisenhower was seen leaving the plane and entering the flying saucer. He stayed in there for almost an hour.
Right.
Okay? Now, supposedly, he had a huge conversation with these people, these beings. Now, the beings that he's met, I guess they actually showed themselves at some point. They're what we used to call the Nordics.
Oh, the tall whites, right. Yeah.
The tall whites, between 7 and 9 foot tall, 2 arms, 2 legs, blonde hair or gold hair, and blue eyes. Now, he actually met the Anunnaki. Okay? They were the Anunnaki, as Zecharia Sitchin said in all of his books, The 12th Planet. Now, supposedly, during this operation, he again tried to get advanced technology, but the Anunnaki would not go for it, and they told him so. They said, we almost destroyed your race thousands of years before with advanced technology, so they refused to give him anything except for limited amounts of advanced technology that they could not use for weapons. Now, anyone who's read the Zecharia Sitchin book, The Lost Book of Enki, knows that after the Great Flood, everything continued on, and Enki and Enlil's grandsons went against Enki's son, Marduk, because Marduk was supposed to have become the ruler of the planet according to the constellations real soon, and they didn't want to give up the ruling of the planet. So Marduk had used the humans to his advantage as a huge race. And Enki's grandson, Enlil's grandson, used the advanced nuclear weapons that were accidentally brought towards Earth, and they used them against the humans. Now, there's this one town over in ancient India, I can't remember its name right now, which they discovered during the 50s, I believe, having a very high radioactive level, where the bricks on the buildings were melted, vitrification, showing intense heat. And here's all these bodies still laying on the ground. Now, supposedly, this was one of the areas where the Anunnaki helped wipe out the humans. Unfortunately for them, the nuclear part backfired, and it went backwards towards Saudi Arabia in the area in Sumer, and killed a lot of the Anunnaki and the humans.
By the way, Robert, that's where all the vitrified glass has been found that was deemed to be thousands of years old through carbon radio dating, though I don't know how accurate that is, but the vitrified glass is exactly in the area you're talking about.
Right. Well, there's this one area in Lower Egypt,
right,
which actually had an airburst thousands of years ago, and that's how they found the green glass in that part there. That Tutankhamun's necklace part, where they I remember that show very well. Okay, so this stuff wiped almost all of the Anunnaki off the planet right then and there, killing numerous amounts of humans, and left the entire area like a desert, a complete desert. So that's where they would not use the nuclear weapons again. Okay? Eisenhower agreed or something. The story at that point is very little told. He kept most of it to himself. After the meeting, he went back to his plane. The alien ship lifted off, and the two of them shot out at low ground cover out of the base. But they made a mistake. They picked on a poor guy off the base working on a telephone tower. A telephone pole. And he saw them at the last minute, and he had to jump for his life. After the meeting, Eisenhower, in this what became Air Force One, flew out at treetop level and went back to Washington, D.C. When he got there to the White House, he supposedly ordered everyone in the White House to never mention aliens or flying saucers to him again. And he turned everything over to MJ-12, Majestic 12.
Well, didn't Eisenhower arrange and put together MJ-12? He was the originator of that?
President Truman did.
Truman, thank you. Not Eisenhower. Truman thank you very much.
Truman with Defense Secretary Forrestal.
Oh, and he was thrown out a window, by the way, of a mental hospital.
Now, supposedly, MJ-12, this underground government, which is not elected, the deep state, they tied Eisenhower's hands from ever going public about any of this stuff.
Is that when he made, Robert, just really quick, is that when he made his speech, his outgoing speech about, the military-industrial complex? Because I truly believe that's what he was really talking about at that point.
He was the first one to use the television and his leading off his speech, but he went into great detail. And a lot of people can find that on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. Don't trust the military type stuff. And Colonel Philip Corso had the same problem because he was reverse engineering all this stuff of all these companies, but they were sending money back to the Army as they used the stuff they reverse engineered. Now, Eisenhower told Kennedy something because President Kennedy started going unannounced to a lot of military bases early in his thing, and he would not talk to the officers. He would only talk to the enlisted men. And at one point, this was brought out by the BBC years ago about President Kennedy and the alien's death, where they actually dragged up two letters from President Kennedy's desk, where he demanded to know, he wanted this stuff on his desk on his return from Dallas. Unfortunately, he never returned from Dallas.
Yeah. Well, I see that as twofold, Robert. I mean, from my personal point of view, that he basically stated, and he stated publicly that he was going to destroy the CIA into 1,000 pieces. Not only was he doing that, right, but then he issued the silver certificates, which basically pushed the Federal Fake Reserve, which the Federal Reserve is no more Federal than Federal Express. You and I both know this. And he was pushing them out of way, printing U.S. Treasury notes, which were silver certificates. But I also
I've seen those before.
Right. And I used to have them, actually. My mother had 100 of those things, which would be worth a little something today, but unfortunately we have none of them left. But I think on the backside, on the darker side of that, because I think he did know about remember his speech about secrecy, about not letting these shadow government people take control of our country, to destroy the very word secrecy. I think that's exactly what you're saying, what he was talking about. So there were three things, okay? He was going to destroy the CIA because he knew how despicable, underhanded, and how corruptive they were to our government. Secondly was the Federal Reserve, which was basically a central bank owned by, a private organization that had control over our money, that was destined to destroy our nation, and we're almost there, by the way. And then the third part of it was the UFO secrecy. He was going to reveal it all. And I think they all ganged up together, CIA, Mafia, FBI, and whoever else was involved. And I absolutely believe Lyndon Johnson was the head of the hammer of that nail that killed our president.
Well,
And I absolutely believe that. I'm not going to change
sure.
my mind on that, but I think there were those three things put together. That's what destroyed Kennedy and his family. And it wasn't only John; it was Robert and Robert Jr. and Ted Kennedy. But he was a drunk anyway, so what does it matter? I mean, he kind of ended his own career in a sense, though he lasted for how many years?
So many things were put into place, were started with the extraterrestrial races by Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And there was almost no way to shut things down after a while. Eisenhower signed so many treaties with the ETs. Actually, that led to all the mass, the animals that had parts cut off and everything being done around the United States. The abductions were all part of that because they were only supposed to do so many, but when they went past that point, Eisenhower was afraid that there was no way to stop them. You see, the Lost Book of Enki goes into this a lot more in detail, that the Anunnaki, they brought certain animals from Nibiru. According to Zecharia Sitchin, they brought them to the earth. Okay? So here we are in the 1950s, and the aliens recognize certain things from Nibiru here on Earth. The humans look just like them. Okay? We're far too close to the Anunnaki. And I wonder why are we here? And the Anunnaki are keeping it quiet that they actually started the human race.
Mm-hmm.
And that they had brought these animals to Earth so they could eat them here on Earth while they lived here, and the humans could eat them. So they've been taking samples of how these animals had been surviving all these centuries, and that's why all these animals are being taken, mutilated in the fields, left out there.
Well, it's interesting that you're bringing this up because Lloyd Pye, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's God bless his soul. He's passed on now,
yes.
But with a fast-acting cancer, no less, right? And we all know how those work. But he basically laid it out in his book, Everything You Thought You Knew Was Wrong. He said we are a hybridized being, and it was actually told to him by a geneticist. Okay, an anonymous genetics engineer who emailed him and says, "Look, if I were to tell you, if I were to go public with this, I would be done, and I'm sure I would be dead. The reality is that we are a hybridized version between some unknown species and a hominid species." Now, I don't know what you're going to think of this when I say this, but the hominid species, which still exists today, is called Sasquatch, okay? Bigfoot, the Yeti. That's what we were hybridized with through their genes because they were upright, okay? Upright, not like a chimpanzee or a gorilla. They are not upright. They do not walk upright. They walk on all fours. These beings, these hominid species, walk upright, okay?
Yeah.
Very muscular, 8 to 10 feet tall, weighing anywhere from 400 to 700 pounds. They use their genetic material with their own to create the human species.
Now, Zecharia Sitchin was not very clear in the book, The Lost Book of Enki, which goes into this. All he said was that the Anunnaki were tired of having to dig for the gold when they came here.
Right.
They came here for the gold and other minerals, which Nibiru had already long since gone out of. And that's why they came to Earth some 450,000 years ago. They came here for that reason. Now, they created a worker race to start off with. Now, they weren't very clear as to what was the worker race that they started working with. They went into that they were living in the trees. That's all they said, if I remember correctly. Now, this worker race was very good, very powerful, and did exactly what they wanted them to do until the worker race de-evolved.
Mm.
Okay? Now, this worker race was all over the place because they were not just digging in one spot, although they did find a lot of gold in what became South Africa.
Right.
Or Africa. But they also said they were working around the planet. Now, at some point, they wanted to make a more refined race, according to them. I'm not stepping on anyone's religion here. I'm trying not to. According to this book with Zacharias Sitchin, they decided to go beyond the worker race, creating what became man, or actually the black-haired people. That's how he defines them in the book, Lost Book of Enki. Now, they created this first race as a worker race only because under Anunnaki law, they could not have slaves. They were classified as a worker race.
Right.
What's the difference, I think, you know? And Enki and his half-sister started playing with the worker race. And they wanted to be smarter and smarter and smarter. And Enki, kind of like the human females, and the Anunnaki were playing with the human females having sex.
Right.
And Enki at one point went too far, and one of the women gave birth to a white humanoid, unlike the black-haired people in Africa. And that became Adam, or Adama.
Right. Adamu. Exactly.
Yes. Now, this white race, he was smart, far smarter than the other worker races. And he could procreate. Because of something they did. I don't want to go into too much detail on this stuff. And he became known to Anu, the king of Nibiru. And Anu said, "Bring this to me." So he was actually flown from Earth to the planet Nibiru so the king of Nibiru could meet this race. Now, he was told not to eat anything or drink anything because now Zacharias Sitchin was very clear to me when I read this book many times that there was a race card here. The Anunnaki did not want the humans to be close to them. They were, they were a worker race.
They wanted a separation
more
of
like
class.
A racial.
Yeah,
exactly.
They wanted a separation of class. Absolutely. Yeah,
well,
without
not
a
so
question.
much of class. Not so much of class. It was more of race. So it was racial problems between the Anunnaki and the humans. And the king of Nibiru picked up on this very quickly. and it was very well between Enki and Enlil. So here's Adam, here's Eve, here's the two sons, Cain and Abel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Cain kills Abel, and Cain was marked with a certain thing, just as in the Bible. He was marked on his head, and he was banished to the other side of the earth. And that's where Cain had his own cities and stuff over on the other side of the earth. Now, this wasn't known until the time of Noah's flood, or Ziasudra's flood. Noah is known only in the Holy Bible.
Right.
In the Sumerian texts, which go 4,000 years further back than the Holy Bible, he is known as Ziasudra. Okay?
Yeah.
Ziasudra, again, was a hybrid. He was a son of Enki.
A son of the gods.
Yes. Now, these ancient texts still survive. Everything I found during my research from 2007 on up into 2012, I was going back to ancient texts which still survive. Okay? Now, the movie 2012 gave away way too much information. And I was told they paid for it. Now, all of your listeners, if they've seen the movie 2012, near the end, there's a point where you have the Chinese monk up in his monastery.
Right.
And he feels the wind over his right ear, and he turns to his right, and hears the oceans coming over the high mountains. Wow, nice.
The Himalayan mountains, no less.
Right, exactly. But that goes back to human history, to Chinese Emperor Yahoo. Believe it or not, sorry, Yahou. Somewhere around 2900 BC, where Yahoo saw this thing coming out of the constellation of Yin, Chinese constellation of Yin. And this thing's gravitational pull caused the oceans to top the high mountains of China. It took them 13 years to drain the salt water from high mountain valleys back down to the rivers. And they also had to send out 4 teams to find out where north, east, west, and the 4 cardinal things for the compass points, north,
Sure.
east, west, and south. Okay? So that's pole shift. That clearly says pole shift.
Right.
And they don't know where north and south are anymore.
I was just going to say a lot of natural lakes were created from those events when the salt actually settled from the water into the basin. That's why we have the Great Salt Lakes, which are now just, salt flats, right?
Right.
But
now,
that's exactly what happened.
The second time that Nibiru came, okay, let me go into some more detail here. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Take your time, Robert.
The planet Nibiru is planet number 6, orbiting around a brown dwarf star called Nemesis. This brown dwarf star orbits around our solar system, outside of our solar system, it orbits around it.
Right.
Now, Nemesis has 6 planets, 1 dwarf planet.
Now, let me just stop you right there because, and this is factual, this is actually stated fact and written down in history, that the Chinese talk about the red dragon and its 7 sisters, okay?
Yes.
These were actual observations that took place, and they actually stated in their record that the sun came up, went midday, and then rolled back down the other side, which can only mean that the planet stopped, rotated backwards, and then continued its rotation in its normal rotationary pattern. Which you stop a planet, anything in that rotation that is liquid is going to move out of its basins and inundate the land, period.
Right. So the movie 2012 gave too much information to anyone who was actually researching this and knew exactly what was being shown. Now, Nibiru orbits through our solar system and back out between Jupiter and Mars. It has its own orbital speed going left and right. Now, everything in our solar system orbits counterclockwise, except for Pluto. Pluto orbits clockwise.
And I think Venus also orbits clockwise too. I think those are the only two.
I'm not sure about Venus, but I'll mention that. Now, every time Nibiru swings through our solar system, the Earth is not in the same location because there's a different speed, there's different orbits. So that's why we don't see it every 3,500 years, 3,600 years. But on 3 times in human history, Nibiru has swung through our solar system and the Earth was in the wrong location.
Right.
The second time was during Noah's flood, roughly 12,900 years ago. Almost every researcher and scientist that has researched this has said the same date time, around 12,900 years ago. The last time was during the exodus of the Hebrews from Egypt. And that's been dated to 1615, 1613 BC.
So what's the time frame? So we got 12,000 years to 16 or 15 frame reference of BC. So
600 years again.
Okay.
So we're right on the doorstep of the 4th time in human history.
And this is fascinating because you're saying the 4th time. Now, the Hopis talk about the same thing, that we are in the 4th,
the Hopis use a different term for a different reason. The Hopis have the Hopi worlds.
Right.
Now, the first 2 Hopi worlds, they ended by fire and by ice.
Right.
Okay? The 3rd Hopi world ended by water.
Right, and then they say that going into the 5th, we end by fire.
Well, the 3rd Hopi world was Noah's flood. It ended by water.
Right.
And they said the Earth's rotation was reversed. Interesting point there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
I'm seeing the duality in ideologies and actual factual evidence that was inscribed in writings, in rock. I mean, these are things that are a fact. These people didn't just make this stuff up.
No. Now, we are in the 4th Hopi world. Now, according to the Hopi prophecies, a whole bunch of things would happen, and they have happened.
Yes.
Okay? Now, near the end of the 4th Hopi world, there'll be a major war, which makes you wonder about what's happening. Everyone's starting to talk about war now.
Yeah, North Korea, right? Just today launched another ICBM that just landed off the shores of Japan, and they said, the way they had this missile basically in its trajectory was pretty much straight up and down, but if they had it at a different angle, it would have definitely reached at least, I think they said, 52 or 5,400 miles, which could definitely easily reach Alaska or Hawaii.
Right. So now we've also got Russia all ticked off about what Obama did before President Trump. We got the North Koreans doing that. Okay. See, here's another point here. Edgar Casey.
Oh, he's a favorite of mine.
The Sleeping Prophet, which was fantastic in his prophecies. Okay? Edgar Casey, before he died in 1945, he prophesied there would be a major pole shift coming up real soon. He's one of the first people I've been able to find out actually use that term.
Well, you know, he never gave us a specific date. He just simply said in the first half of the 22nd century,
right.
21st century, however you want to look at it. He didn't give a specific date. He said that there would be upheaval on this planet. He said it. And, his accuracy was amazing, by the way.
Right. Now, Edgar Casey, he not only prophesied it, but he had maps drawn up, okay, showing where he said the future Earth would look like. Now, he started, the main thing was mostly the United States. He had a map of the United States. And the movie 2012 used this map very well. It showed the entire west coast of North America gone. It showed major islands coming up the west coast from where Yosemite and Lake Tahoe are, all the way up to what still is Canada. The west coast shoreline would be in Colorado. The Great Lakes would rip a huge hole down through the United States down to the Gulf of Mexico, 50 miles wide.
Right, splitting the United States in half, exactly.
And the East Coast, most of it would be gone, all the way back to the Adirondack Mountains. I think it's that mountain range that's 100 miles in.
Now, Robert, you want to hear something really curious? Are you familiar with John Moore? Because yes. Yeah, I figured you were. Well, he's put out a challenge to a lot of people on his radio show because what happened was that he ended up finding all these maps in these different TV shows and movies from the early 50s and 60s and 70s in these movies showing exactly what we're talking about, that the going up the Mississippi all the way up to, the Great Lakes, that, basically showing maybe a 50-mile or 100-mile gap between the United States, Florida gone, most of the East Coast is gone, and then part of California, Washington, Oregon, going up to B.C., and Mexico, with like half of the states gone, being inundated by water. What's funny is that when you look at these old TV shows where he's found these maps, there's not just one or two or three. There's like 10 and 20, and I think there's more. And I think when he was talking about this, Robert, they already knew way back then, and they were putting these maps in. They were placing them, as a showpiece, I guess, in these TV shows and movies to basically give us hints to say, hey, folks, you know what? Things are going to change within the next 70, 80 years. Things aren't going to be the same as they were. And I found that really, really incredible, my friend.
Now, John Moore is a very intelligent person. He's been in the military, military intelligence.
Yep.
And because of his rank and stuff, he was actually protecting some admirals at this one meeting. And he goes into this very well, where he was bringing admirals into this room, and he would look at the chalkboard, and the chalkboard had a big map on it. and it was part of what Edgar Casey had done years before, but it had more to it. Had more things being shaded off in the actual meetings. So he took Edgar Casey's map and he reshaded it, making it more detailed Edgar Casey maps. You see, the military's been using these maps from Edgar Casey for about 30 years or more for the high retirees from the military service. They've been telling them something's coming up. You're only going to have, when we call you, you're only going to have a couple of days to get everything together, and then you will be relocated when that happens. And they're giving this map. But numerous people have been leaking this map for years.
Yep.
Okay? And the thing is still in. Now, John Moore knew that a lot of the naval retirees were told to go back and retire up in the Adirondack Mountains, up in the
right, the Ozarks. Yep.
The Ozarks, yeah. And they were also told to relocate up in Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, up around those areas, well above what would be the normal, what would be the future water line.
Well, let me stop you right there. You just brought up Wyoming. What's your assessment of what's going on with Yellowstone? We know that the NASA observatory plane has been, basically, doing these patterns around Yellowstone and tracking not the volcanic activity, but the earthquake activity, which has really increased. I mean, it's really increased tremendously. What do you think's going on there, Robert? Is it pressure from this binary system that's now in our inner solar system that is putting pressure on that volcanic mantle that may release it in some way, shape, or form?
It's causing the Earth's crust to have great strain. The planet Nibiru has 13 satellites orbiting around. Call them what you will. Moons, dwarf moons, whatever.
Sure.
There's 13 of them. Okay? Now, Nibiru orbits between Jupiter and Mars. So it doesn't come that close towards the Earth, but it does. NASA found Nibiru back in 1983 using the IRIS space probe.
Yeah,
IRIS
that was
a very advanced infrared space probe.
Right.
Now,
Dr. Robert Harrington.
Exactly. Now, the original spotters said that Nibiru was between 4 to 8 times the size of the planet Earth. Now, according to Zacharias Sitchin and Robert S. Harrington, it has a very strong, intense gravitational pull and electromagnetic pull and God knows whatever else. So as it's been approaching, the gravitational pull of Nibiru and these satellites we're seeing in our skies right now, because we are seeing the outermost 8 or 9 of the 13 satellites in our skies right now. We have been seeing them since April 10th, 2015. The first one was seen over the skies of Antarctica. The Newmeyer 3 station had been tracking it for years. And here it is, nice and clear in their skies. Okay?
Right.
A friend of mine caught it in her skies over Illinois on April 29th in color. And then it was boom, 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 one thing after another, where we've seen 8 or 9 of these things in our skies. Now, the powers that be, the leaders of our planet, the underground government are using advanced extraterrestrial technology to hide these things in our skies right now. Just the other day, a friend of mine caught with her own camera, looking up into the sky, 3 huge round things. But you could not see exactly what they were. You could just see the circular thing of these things being in our skies. They don't want you to see these things anymore, okay?
Right.
Because we would have mass panic, rioting, and that's exactly what they don't want. Unfortunately, as these things draw closer and closer and closer, you see, the Earth is orbiting counterclockwise through our solar system.
Right.
Nibiru and these 13 satellites are orbiting clockwise. So we're orbiting right towards each other.
Sure.
Now,
What happens
Nibiru,
when I was just going to say, Robert, what happens when two magnets of poles alike attract? They're going to pull into each other. Now, you have the Earth spinning in a counterclockwise rotation, and you have Nibiru and its system coming through in a clockwise rotation. So when it comes through and this magnet locks, that's where the brake stops, and it stops the Earth. And that's what I was referring to earlier when the Chinese, who actually, wrote this down, because the astronomers at that time, if they didn't accurately dictate on their parchment or scroll or whatever correctly, they would lose their heads. That's how brutal it was back then.
Exactly. Now, I've read several books which also dealt with this. They called it something else. They didn't call it Nibiru, Planet X. They put a different name towards it. And they said as this huge planetary force drew close to the Earth, the bar, just like you said, the magnetic part of the Earth would draw closer towards Nibiru, causing the Earth's rotation to slow down and stop. Now, the effects like that are very severe. Now, the Holy Bible has, I think, once or twice in their accounts where the day stopped, where it stayed sunny for an entire day. Ancient Chinese history said the exact same thing. Now, the ancient Chinese also wrote about this. Now, Mosai of China, somewhere around the same time as Ipuwer in China, in Egypt, Mosai of China said that 3 gods came down, and they aligned themselves with one warlord, and to pay and to punish the other warlords for not following, they caused sand and rocks to fall from the skies for almost 10 days. Intense heat started major fires, intense cold froze things. That's the Noah's flood, 12,900 years at that time.
Right.
Now, trying to think again. I'm tired. Now,
I know you are. So I want you to relax. Take a deep breath.
Oh, yeah. So, there are these ancient texts which talk about this. Now, you've got that happening in China, that happening over in Egypt, the other side of the world, the same thing's happening.
Right.
Now, Ipuwer said that the destroyer showed up, big reddish mass in their skies, and it took up to almost 1/5 of the skies over Egypt from the horizon upwards. And it was in their skies for almost 9 days. Now, the Exodus happened. the Exodus wound up near the Mediterranean, where they were stopped by a saltwater marsh. Now, he said the ground was heaving left and right. Mountains were crumbling around them. And the ground rose under the water, like tectonic plates, and the water drained away. Now, Pharaoh, which was a Hyksos pharaoh, had been watching them. They went running across the mud and everything, and Pharaoh followed and started killing off as many as they could. The hind group was fighting, the tail end group was fighting Pharaoh's troops. Now, they said that all during the Exodus, volcanic ash was falling all over Egypt. Okay?
Right.
Continuing to fall. Now, they said there was a tremendous roar that stopped all the fighting and everything. And then they said the water that was near all went rushing outwards. So a tsunami was coming. Okay? Now, when the roar finally stopped, all this huge tsunami came rushing inward with such force it was ripping up coral rocks and flinging them inwards, and it killed the Hyksos pharaoh and all the troops, and that's where the Hyksos survived after that. Now, about 35 years ago, give or take, they found Egyptian chariots on the bottom of the Red Sea. And they dated these chariots, which were for Pharaoh's chariots, actually had gold on them.
Right.
At the end of the 17th dynasty.
Hey, Robert, let me ask you something. Didn't they recently, because I remember reading this, it was a couple of years ago, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but didn't they find what appeared to be a very large wooden ship on the side of Mount Sinai? Am I right or wrong about this?
There's been a whole bunch of stuff about that. Now, this one team back in the 60s, they went up on Mount Ararat. There's actually two mountains.
Mount Ararat, not Sinai. Thank you for correcting me. Mount Ararat, right. That's what I meant.
Now, they actually went up there, and they found the ark, and the ark had split in two. And one part had started to come down. Now, they took all kinds of photographs and God knows what. They actually stood on top of it at one point. But I guess all their camera, the film was confiscated. So this one team leader, he sat down with I remember I actually saw this on TV years ago. He sat down with an artist, a very good artist, and the artist totally he drew everything that was shown. Now they came back, and hardly anything was ever mentioned about it. Now, years ago, I'm not exactly sure when, a team paraglided. It's like Navy SEALs or something.
Right, that's exactly what I was getting to, exactly.
They paraglided onto the remains of the ark, and they spent 2 weeks inside it. And they found numerous ancient things. And they were taken off it's called Ararat's Anomaly. So a U.S. military team actually went on top into the ark. Now there's an ancient account which almost sounds like it was taken right out of Zechariah Sitchin's, but it's a different account where they describe how the ark was built, the everything matches the Holy Bible. 3
Right.
decks, and split in 2, right in the middle, making it 6 decks. Now, on each one of the decks, they had a huge water cistern that was built, but it was tarred inside and out.
So it was waterproof,
You cannot drink out of a tarred cistern.
Right.
Humans would die.
Right.
They were ballast tanks. It was a semi-submersible. Now, this account goes into who went on the ark. The king, his family, and all these people from every trade was in there. How to make bricks, how to make this, how to make that, how to make chariots. Okay.
Yeah, I'm following
chariots, you. How to make beer, how to make this, how to make that. And they went into how it was built, how many people built it. They built it in 7 days. And it was the same cubits from the Holy Bible, about 450 feet long, how many feet wide, how many feet high. 7 days. Now, this account said the ark was not built down near the ocean. It was built up in the mountains.
Right.
Because this person was told by another person that the water would go up to where the ark is.
And
Just
gently lift it up, right, gently lift it up off its perch on the mountainside and bring it down as the water swelled back down through the mountain ranges. Absolutely. Makes sense.
Just like in the movie
that's
2012.
That's
up
right.
in the Chinese mountains.
That's right.
They used way too much of ancient stuff for that movie. So the destroyer showed up. All the stars shifted to new positions, and the floodwaters came.
And here we are, Robert, right? Here we are, just really quick, right? The Inuit Indians, and this is a fact, they've talked about it, it's on the mainstream, it came out in the mainstream that, the stars have shifted. They can no longer navigate the way they used to be able to navigate when the stars were aligned. Then we have the fact that the sun came up 2 days early in Greenland or New Zealand. I don't remember the exact place. It's a fact that can happen.
Yes.
And then we also have the fact that the planet's wobble has shifted by 1,000 miles. These are facts. This is not made up nonsense. These are facts. The airports had to what? They had to reassign the numbers to the airstrips because they were no longer valid because of the pole or the Earth's wobble shifting so much more drastically.
Exactly. But the way Ippawur and these ancient accounts tell it, the stars all shifting to new positions happen very quickly.
Right.
That's called a pole shift. Okay? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, the world governments have been preparing for what's coming since 1954. All of the world governments around the planet, including Russia, China, and all the other ones, they know what's going to happen because they have these maps from Edgar Casey, and they know what they've been told by the ET races, which are actually communing with the world governments right now.
And also by the remote viewers like Dane.
Exactly.
And what's Ingo Swann and the rest of them.
Now,
they were told long ago.
Now, a lot of those remote viewers, they were given certain knowledge at one point, and they were told this is going to happen real soon, and it didn't happen. Something changed on June 1st, 2013, because almost all of the remote viewers, they actually had a study from 2008 to 2013, June 1st, 2013, that the Earth would have been hit by numerous huge asteroids, which would have caused tremendous displacement waves, washing away almost everything.
Well, I think that was Courtney Brown, though, with his remote viewing experiment, because he had timeline A and timeline B. I'm very familiar with that. But what I'm talking about is Ed Dames, and this is very specific, because he said in his doomsday prediction in the video that he made, I think it was about 30 minutes. It was quite impressive. He says, look, we don't have a timeline. It's not like we can pull a date out of a hat, but he says what we were able to do, okay, is look at a succession of events to bring us to the closest point of when this event, the final event, takes place. One of the things he mentioned is North Korea and its ICBM and some sort of nuclear detonation getting close to that event. And then he said, as the last event would unfold, this is as close as he says he could get to the actual solar inundation, okay? He says, all these warring parties out there, and what do we see right now, Robert? A lot of warring parties out there. And I know everybody's going to say, yeah, there's always been warring parties, but think about how many warring parties there are right now. Think about all these little escalations taking place worldwide. He said that these soldiers in the field, okay, would look up. They would look up, and when they looked up, they knew something was strange and wrong, and they dropped their weapons, and their priorities would change, and they would go home. I think we're getting close to that. Now, we haven't seen North Korea detonate a nuclear device yet, okay? As far as in the mainstream, we haven't seen that. But when that event happens, we're going to be real close, my friend.
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, Edgar Casey's map of the coming pole shift shows North Korea completely underwater.
Yep.
Including a good deal of China. Japan goes underwater. A good deal of Russia goes underwater. Part of Russia comes out of the water, way up. Now, the Russians, years ago, knowing what they know is going to come, they started building huge underground cities up in the Ural Mountains. The Ural Mountains.
Right.
They're already prepared for this.
Okay. By the way, Robert, looks like we have a caller. I wasn't paying attention, but Bad Baby's saying we have a caller. So,
sure,
caller. Yeah, caller, you're more than welcome to join in. Please do. I think it's Faithful777. If you're on the line, jump in. Give us your thoughts. Talk to Robert.
Hi, Robert. I was just calling in because I couldn't hear you guys. That's all I was doing.
I'm so sorry you couldn't hear us. Well, you're more than welcome to stay on the line and hang out with us. And if you have a question, jump in and throw it into Robert.
Sure.
I definitely will. It's just that it kept buffering, and I never heard you. Been trying for at least a minute.
Well, I am so glad you're with us. And so, Robert, here's the thing I wanted to throw at you as well. One of the most amazing maps that I've ever seen, and not to take away anything from Edgar Casey, but is the Gordon Michael Scallion map with the details that he put in that map is extraordinary. And again, same with Lori Toy and the I Am America map, which is amazing. But there's other maps that all seem similar in the geological upheaval that takes place. And watching land masses disappear and other land masses appearing.
Sure. Well, the only thing I was told about a lot is that they were all working together or working off the same basic information. I don't know that personally, but yes, a lot of the maps, they seem to be really lining up. Caller, what question do you have?
She is just sitting here listening in because what happened, Robert, is that she was trying to listen in, but her, I guess from her computer, was buffering, so she called in so she could listen into the show.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We are sitting on a rare, if you want to put it that way, a rare front row seat for what's coming down. And this is coming down very quickly, very soon. All the governments started building the deep underground military bases back during the 80s.
Look who broke all that information, Robert. Phil Schneider, he basically just said, hey, you know what, this is wrong, and I'm coming out with this information. And at that time, he was talking about those 130 underground bases, right? So,
right.
There's an old saying by George Carlin. I love George Carlin, by the way. That guy was an amazing comic. But remember, because when he really switched his thought process and understood how, how corrupt the whole system was, he says, you know what, folks? It's a big club, and you ain't in it. And that's exactly what's happened here. It's all the elite, these government, these government psychopaths who all have their ticket to the underground bunker. But I'll tell you this, my friend, and I've said this over and over. I used to say this on my show when I was doing it. I said, you know what? Good. Go in your underground bunker, and you know what I'm going to do? Once you all get in there, I'm going to take my blowtorch and lock you in there. Because when the earth shifts and everything caves in on you, that's going to be your burial ground.
Now, according to John Moore in one of his videos, he said the Vatican has a bunker in the upper United States, somewhere around Wyoming. So when this stuff happens, they also have their own underground bunker up there, the deep underground. Now, these things are supposedly about 2,000 feet underground, and they think they're going to ride this out. When the Earth's mantle, when the Earth's crust shifts over the mantle. Project Camelot. Project Camelot came out with a really nice piece years ago talking about these deep underground military bases up in Norway.
Yep.
A high engineer turned politician, and he outed the deep underground military bases up there in Norway. They were for the elite only.
Yep. That
when Planet X shows up, everyone on the surface will die.
Yeah.
It goes into great detail.
And by the way, the seed vault in the Svalbard seed vault there in Norway, by the way, the permafrost now is melting. It's flooded everything out. Worthless. It's all destroyed.
Well, the Doomsday Seed Vault, that's what that was originally called by 60 Minutes years ago. That was built by the world's billionaires. And that was, to have all these seeds because they knew from the accounts of Ippawar back during the Exodus that when the destroyer was in the skies, fire from the skies came down and burned up everything that grew. Orchards, fields, vines. And that's why they have to have all these seeds. Now,
well, doesn't it state in the Bible that a third of the earth was burned by fire, right? That's stated in the Bible. So that would have to account for the, Planet X binary system coming in and causing this.
that's where the ancient history was put into religion, and most people, except for religious people, they hardly listen to religion. Okay, but the world's governments know this was an actual account.
Right.
That's why they started building all these. Now Hollywood's been coming in on our side for years. The movie ID4 years ago, the first one, it outed the fact that the President of the United States was out of the loop because of Majestic 12, and he didn't know about the aliens or UFOs. The second film, interesting film here, Deep Impact.
Right.
With Morgan Freeman playing a black U.S. president.
Right.
Now, Morgan Freeman accidentally leaks to the reporter about the deep underground military bases. They're only good for about so many people for so much time, and this is what's going to happen.
Right. It was amazing because she stumbled into that knowledge because she didn't really know what it was. She just knew Ellie, what she thought was like the mistress of the secretary. It really kind of just all fell into place, but they did a really great job on that film, no question about it. It definitely reflects what's going on.
But the other point there was that Morgan Freeman had to announce martial law, okay?
Right.
Because of the coming comet, all right? Now, under martial law, all elections stop.
Right.
Everyone living under martial law, and I would like to ask all of your listeners to look up martial law on all of your search engines and read it, what they can do, what you cannot do anymore. See, at the end of the movie, interesting here, the president and everyone survives.
Exactly.
And here's Morgan Freeman years later when they're rebuilding the Capitol. Okay? So
and by the way, what they don't show is the people coming out from under the underground bunker, standing there at the Capitol, listening to him speak again. That's what they don't tell you.
Okay. Now this is what's happening right now. Now a lot of your listeners do not know this. Hillary Rodham Clinton was supposed to have been president. There was a fix. A lot of people believe this. There was a fix for her to be president. So she knew what was coming. Okay? One of the WikiLeaks emails from John Podesta talks about this very clearly. About 2012, somewhere around there, John Podesta, at some point, John Podesta sends an email out to Hillary Rodham Clinton, John McCain, senator, and a bunch of other people, telling them exactly what Nibiru is going to do to the Earth. And he goes into great detail. I have a copy of this still, and it's interesting. So here, Hillary Rodham Clinton knew about Nibiru. Very clear. John Podesta knows about it. I'm quite sure President Trump knows about it. Okay?
I think so. I definitely think so.
Because you get to take all your friends down into the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, with you for survival. Now, when Hillary Rodham Clinton lost and President Trump won, Now it's up to him who goes down into the military bunkers. Okay? So that's behind why all the news medias are against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
All of Hillary Rodham Clinton's friends who were already fixed into these deep underground military bases, now they don't have those doors anymore. It'll be Trump and whomever he has with him down in there after the dust settles.
Well, I'll tell you what, Robert, you couldn't pay me enough money to go into one of those underground dumps because that is a death sentence. Period.
Exactly. I'm feeling the same way. I'm going to find a way to survive on the surface as best as I can.
Absolutely. Listen,
exactly.
We're coming close to the end of the show, man. And I know you're going in for surgery. What's going on with you, and what are they going to do? Because I want everybody to have their thoughts on you and a prayer for you tomorrow to make sure everything goes okay, brother.
Well, it turned out my older sister died about 4 months ago.
I'm sorry.
And she had a very weak heart, and I never knew this. My family was always kind of scattered over the years, and I never was told about her having a weak heart. And recently, last week, I had a small heart attack myself. And I went to a doctor. I went to a hospital, and they immediately checked me out, and they spotted it because that type of stuff gives off certain types of things in your blood workup.
Right.
So I went in for a cardiovascular test where they send in the little probe, and it checks the heart and everything. And I have a weak heart also. There's no way around it.
Okay.
In fact, they told me I had several bad blockages. So it's heart failure. They told me that they're planning for a triple bypass coming up really soon.
All right.
So,
well,
I knew you wanted me to go to that show, and I'll do everything I can to get there to show these photographs to people. You see, this thing is coming closer than everyone believes.
I agree.
John
I agree
Moore
with you.
John Moore and all of his contacts and some of my contacts were all saying somewhere around September, October of this year going into next year. Now, my contacts are very clear on this now. They're saying somewhere around September 23rd of this year, we will be going into the time of Virgo. Now, this matches up with a bunch of other people from the Holy Bible saying this is when there's an alignment. Now, that's when things are going to start. Now, what things will start, I don't know. Do I know exactly what's going to happen? No, I don't. All I know is all the preparations are and have been for a pole shift. Now, John Moore said, I asked him very clearly on one time, and he finally got back to me. He said there would be a northward shift of the Earth's crust. Now, this has happened each 3 times. It's been on an average of 20 to 23 degrees of pole shift. All 3 accounts. Now, John Moore is saying he's only told me so much, but he said basically the same thing again. Now,
I think I was just going to say, I think John was saying, now is the time to prepare because it's in this time frame between 2017 and 2018. My friend, Robert Dean, was a very dear friend of mine, Robert. I've known for years. And you know as well as I do, with the Carrie Cassidy interview that he did, he specifically said, 2017, count on it, you can take it to the bank, September, October frame.
Right. Exactly. So all this has been worked out, and it's been worked out for years. They're already prepared for it. The deep underground military bases are fully active right now. The one under the Denver airport is, and all the other ones. Russia built over 5,000 bomb shelters in and around Moscow.
Right.
For this event. Okay? All the world governments, at least the ones that are going to really survive and have anything to play with this new world order, they're already prepared for it. Now, my contact, she was very clear about this. She told me to do this work to warn as many people as I could. Now, she clearly said to tell everyone to prepare for a 6-month backpacking trip. Because when the Earth's crust starts to move, just like in the movie 2012, there will be earthquakes left and right. You will not be able to drive your car. You might be able to drive your 4-wheel drive vehicle. You'll probably be using a horse, or you'll be hoofing it. You'll be walking. Because of everything that will happen as the Earth's crust shifts over the mantle.
Well, a lot of mountains are going to be created. A lot of huge sinkholes are going to open up. Yeah, all kinds of craziness. Not in it's just going to be tremendous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this
think about gas pockets. Think about gas pockets opening up the Earth. Where it's deadly gas, no smell, will it kill you instantly? Right? I mean, it's just all kinds of things that most people don't think about. But these are the things you're going to have to deal with when this happens.
Plus, you'll have all the wild animals, which are normally at kind of rest right now. They'll be freaking out too. So you're going to have to worry about them, because you will not have the local sheriff, the military, your government, or anything to help you. They're all
Robert,
hiding.
Bad Baby's got a question for you. He says, all the fighting at the White House, all the fighting at the White House and the press sec saying, there's a leak, there are all these leaks. She's asking you, do you think it has anything to do with Planet X?
I believe so.
Okay. Just not in a direct sort of way.
Sure. Because the people that thought they were going to be saved in these bunkers, now they're not going to be saved, because it'll be Trump's friends who are going to be saved, not Hillary Rodham Clinton's friends.
Well, thank God for that, because she needs to. That woman needs to be put in a prison and then tried and electrocuted, in my opinion.
Well,
she's one of the most evil people on the planet.
Basically, this is going to be a huge reset button being pushed.
Right.
The Earth is not going to die. The Earth will still be here, as it has been for all these centuries. Now, the interesting thing is the movie X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it.
It starts back 3,600 years ago with this alien who was here a long time before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he wants to clean the planet.
Right.
Okay? He says the planet should be cleansed. That's the same thing the Hopis used in their prophecies, that the red Kachina will cleanse the earth of all the non-believers.
Right, exactly.
It's amazing how Hollywood is just one step ahead of us, looking at what's coming.
Here's another thing that also you got to remember, that Pastor Williams used to say to us. He says, the elite use the media and films to tell us what they're going to do before they do it, because it's like a law. It's one of their laws, their rituals, whatever, one of their satanic laws that they have to tell us, even though they're going to kill us or wipe us out. They have to tell us they're doing this for some bizarre reason. So there you have it, all implanted in through Hollywood, television, films, TV shows, and whatnot. It's just it comes down to this, Robert. Either people understand what we're talking about and believe it to a certain extent, which at least puts them in a mindset to say, okay, all right, these guys could be wrong, but then again, they could be right. What's wrong with preparing and getting ready for anything that's to come? Could be economic collapse, okay? Could be anything. But yes, the reality is it's really important to be prepared for any eventual situation, because that puts you on top of the heap of people who have no clue what's going on.
Well, the people who are prepared will have a fighting chance over those who are not prepared. Okay? You'll have a sleeping bag, you'll have a tent, you'll have some food, you might have something to defend yourself with.
Right.
Because, everyone, just like from in Hurricane Katrina, everyone's going to be looting, everyone's going to be killing, everyone's going to be raping.
Remember with the cops stealing television sets? Cops.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
These are the guys who are supposed to be protecting us? Insanity, man.
Because everyone will think the world's coming to an end, so they're going to want to take what they have or what they don't have. So, like I said, it's going to be like a big reset button being pushed.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because of all the stuff. See, we're going to be flying through the tail of Nibiru as it passes over us.
Right.
We're going to be getting these rocks coming down just like they did during the Exodus. We're going to be getting the fire coming down just like they did during the Exodus. You're not going to have cell phones. There will not be any satellites up there anymore. The International Space Station will come down, just like the Hopi prophesied it will.
Right.
And what happens afterwards, it's going to be very quiet for a long time.
I agree.
There's no way around this.
Well, Robert, listen, we're at the end here. Why don't you give out your website so everybody can go check out the photographic evidence and the textual evidence, so they can read it for themselves and get themselves, more knowledge, more prepared for what's to come, my friend.
Okay, my webpage is starshipsaroundthesun.com. Starshipsaroundthesun.com. I'm also on Facebook at Robert H. Evans Jr. So that's Facebook at Robert H. Evans Jr. Now, I try to go in there on a daily basis to update my friends' requests, and I've been trying as best I can. I've been running into a bunch of trolls, and I try to eliminate them as quietly as I can.
Yeah, that's just an awful thing with that.
Exactly. Not everyone wants to follow that this is coming to happen.
Right.
Unfortunately, you're going to be seeing these things in our skies because they can't hide them anymore.
You're right.
Okay?
Because there's too much photographic evidence.
There's too much photograph. The planet Nibiru was recently caught in the skies over Massachusetts as a big reddish ball of flame. Now it's not just it's not being seen as a big planet-looking thing. It's being seen as a big ball of flame. Now the big ball of flame is being seen that way because of the solar wind going over it.
Right.
The solar wind gives this huge tail as it's blowing all the stuff backwards. And if you look very closely at any of the photographs, you can actually see almost like flames all the way around.
Yeah, I saw those.
Circular.
Exactly. I saw those photographs, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty much it. It's crunch time, you know. It's a fact.
And that's exactly how it was described thousands of years ago. The same looking thing.
So listen, I know that you've got to go in Monday for your surgery. Listen, I want to bless you and wish you well. And I told everybody in the chat, and please, for everybody who's listening, you know what? Give Bob your prayers. Send him your conscious thoughts of healing and love, because I want you to recover from this without any hiccups, so you can be out here bringing some more truth, more evidence, and I just want to wish you well, my friend. You take care of yourself.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding me?
Thank you. Thank you to you and Bad Baby, yes.
Oh, Bad Baby, she's just awesome. I love her. You know, and she's, of course, recovering from her ordeal, you know, and it's never easy going through anything like this. But I just want to thank you again, Bob. Yeah. I just want to thank you again and bless you for even being in the condition you are. And I know you're tired to come out here and put all this wonderful, wonderful information to wake people up and say, hey, you know what? Get ready because it's coming. It's that simple. So thank you, my dear friend.
Okay, thank you.
It was my pleasure. So everybody, look, this has been the show with our guest, Robert Evans. Great guy. Love speaking with him. Every time he's on, he just brings more information. He's a wealth of information. Go to his website, please. You know, stars around the, I think it was stars around our...
Starships.
Thank you.
Starships around
Starships.
the sun.
Thank you. Starships around our sun. That's the one. And go to his Facebook page, please. Support him in any way you can. He's just an incredible guy with an incredible, just a plethora of information. That's all I can say. Now, I know, Bad Baby, we're going to be on next Friday. I'm looking forward to it for our mystery guest. Still not sure who he is, but I'm always looking forward to it. And I want to thank everybody for listening in on tonight's broadcast right here on Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And we will see you all next Friday. You guys take care of yourself and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We'll see you next Friday.